Hey guys, thanks a lot for tuning in to the Chalk Me Out podcast with me, Narayanan. In today's episode, I'm joined by a very close friend of mine from all the way in Cambodia. He is a podcast host, a number one education podcaster in Cambodia. He's a certified life coach, and I follow him for two things. One, the way he has worked upon his life for self improvement and learning. Second, how he has read over 50 books every single year for the past few years. So, this conversation is going to be a lot about knowledge, about careers, about how do you find peace with yourself, with the kind of things you're doing. So, let's get started. You're someone that I know from ISEC. You have the brightest and I would say the widest smile of all people that I know.
Thank
So I'm
you.
gonna hit on that.
I think it's a
I'm gonna
Cambodian
hit.
feature.
It is. It is. I only
Really?
know one, and that's you. So I'm gonna
Okay.
still take your word for it. I'm gonna go to one thing. You know, I have three things in my mind that I want to talk to you about before we end this. The first thing is, you spoke about consuming content, right? I
Mm,
feel that humans are like a empty cup. You start consuming knowledge, and
mm,
you hit a saturation point until you start giving that knowledge out to people, right?
mm,
Now you are someone who's
mm.
consuming content and you're giving it out. I want to
Yeah.
focus on how you consume, given that your background has a lot of books.
Mm,
I'm like an innate promoter of reading books because I
mm.
caught on to that very late in my life. I was 25 when I
Yeah.
picked up reading self-help or even nonfiction. How do you consume your content? What would you recommend in terms of books that early readers can pick up to enjoy and learn from other people's experiences? Yeah, that's the first thing that I want
Mm.
to ask you.
Yeah, I was reading just about the same age, actually. I was start reading at 24, 25, actually.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's like
It's never too
5 years.
late.
It's not too late. I mean, I just go from someone who never read into reading, I don't know, 70 to 80 books a year. And 5 years later, I read 300 pages already. I think a lot more than a lot of the people who've been reading their whole life for some, right? I'm not trying to be arrogant to everyone on that, but yeah, it's pretty plenty, right? So it's never too late to start doing that. And part of reading, I think, first one is to I have these things called basically how I set goal for myself in reading. So I
Mm-hmm.
divide it in three different categories. So
Okay.
I think goal setting is important because if a lot of time we read, but we don't know what we want to read on or what we want to grow on, and then we just keep reading and we don't see result, right? Because
Yeah.
we keep getting bombarded with information that is not relevant, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get bombarded with, okay, top 10 book to read in your life, or top 10 book
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
read
Yeah. Yeah.
anytime too,
Yeah.
right? So I define it's like the three section. One is about life goals, right? Or long-term planning. Let's say, who do you want to be? Uh, what's what are the life condition that you want to have? What the career path you want to have, or anything, right? Basically, 5, 10 years, 20 years ahead. Doesn't have to be clear on the goal, but it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
if there's any interest, then okay, just write down and then see like, okay, to get there, what do I need to learn,
Got it.
right? Maybe because I'm a person who's interested in philosophy, then I'm kind
Mm-hmm.
of like, hey, philosophy is the things that I want to do because it helped me live life more happy.
Yeah.
And then the second category is looking at the short term, right? Let's say, what's the problem that I'm having with my life right now?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say now I'm having problem with my emotion. I have problem with money. That is something that if I fix it this year, I think it's gonna improve a lot of my life quality and have more time to do other things, right? So look at
Yep.
the short term, right? What's the problem that we want to solve, and then we just write down, okay, I want to learn this and that. And the
Mm-hmm.
last bucket, I I call it like a fun goal. It's more like, what am I curious about? What is
Yeah.
fun for me? What is something that I want to try out? Let's say this year I'm interested in martial art. I don't think it's part of my goal that I want to be a martial artist in, let's say, 30 or 40 years. But it's
Yeah.
just like, hey, could be interesting. Just give it a try. And it kind of like become part of my gig now. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so it just like look at all this and like, okay, what's in the long term that I want to learn,
Yeah.
that can help me take to me to my goal. What is the problem I want to solve, and what do I need to learn to solve that? And
Got it.
what am I curious, or what could be fun for me to try out? Then we map out, okay, where can I learn it from? It can be podcasts or these books or
Books.
whatever. And then
Yeah.
whatever we consume, then it kind of like a brick to build us to get, to build the path for us to get there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I think it just make learning more intentional, just like not like reading for the sake of it, and just like every information that you read, because it's useful in some sense. You're gonna make use of it, right? So
Correct.
yeah, and I think that I think most importantly is that being intentional, and the second one is more like learn as if you're trying to teach someone about it. I think there's a
Makes
lot of
sense.
saying on that. It's like Mark Manson also said, like, if you want to learn
Correct.
something fast, just teach someone.
See
Because
someone.
let's say if I'm reading a book and I have to share, let's say, a 5-minute video or make a podcast about it.
Yeah.
If I don't understand it, then I cannot teach
I
someone.
won't
It's
be
just
able
like,
to. Absolutely.
yeah. And you see that a lot in school, because like a lot of the good students, they teach others, right? And then because they teach others, then they put themselves into a position that, hey, I have to understand very well, because if I don't understand very well, I
Be able
cannot
to.
explain it very, very well, right? And
Absolutely.
yeah, Navarro Ravikant, he have like this. He said this also, like, if you cannot explain something, let's say in all the language that you speak, let's say to 5 years old or something, then probably you don't understand it enough. And I like, yeah, I
Interesting.
mean, doing this content, like doing podcasts and all that. At first, I kind of like, hey, there's a lot of work to do of this, but sooner or later, it became part of my learning engine that
Yeah.
I'm making use of it. I'm just like, hey, I learned and I want to share, and it kind of build up the bones, or build up more base in my understanding to it, because it challenges me to talk about it, right? So
Correct.
yeah, and the rest is just consistency. Just keep doing that, and
Mm-hmm.
especially learning what you enjoy. I think part of the bucket I mentioned about curiosity, because a lot of time we learn what we have to learn, because
Yeah.
we know, like, okay, at the age of 6 we have to go to school, you have to study this subject, you have to learn this, you have to learn this, and
Yeah.
then you have to remember this. And there's a lot of have to, right? And definitely there are certain have to that we should be doing in our life. There's certain have to that we should learn, but add a bit more joy. And I think I start love reading a lot, because I've been reading a lot of stuff that I enjoy. That made me
Yeah.
enjoy reading altogether. So then it become more fun. Like Leonardo da Vinci said, learning never exhausts the mind, and which I totally agree. Like it shouldn't be an activity that drain you, because if you keep learning the things that bring you happiness, bring you
Yeah.
love, joy, and all that, it's gonna fuel up the tank for you to learn more.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I shoot these daily munchies out on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. In case you're not subscribed to this on whichever application you're listening to, I'd highly appreciate if you do so. And if you're listening to me for a while now, your ratings and reviews would take this podcast to the people that want to listen to me. You can also give your feedbacks and reach out for any questions that you might have on narayanan@chalkmeout.com. And until I see you on the next episode in a couple of days, have a very, very lovely day and make sure that you own your life.